Welcome to Learning Life Content. Please like, share, comment and subscribe. Your support helps us grow and motivates us to bring you more fascinating and enriching stories. 1. A kingdom reborn, a prime minister in waiting, a king with a secret, and a quiet refusal that shaped South Asia's map forever. For 104 years, Nepal had been the private fiefdom of the Ranas, a dynasty of hereditary prime ministers who held the Shah kings as little more than ceremonial prisoners. They had sealed the kingdom off from the outside world, preserving a feudal order while the rest of Asia was being transformed by the tides of history. But by the dawn of the 1950s, the foundations of this gilded cage were crumbling. The Rana regime, decadent and isolated, had finally collapsed under the weight of its own contradictions and a burgeoning popular revolt. The symbolic end of this era was the triumphant return of the monarch himself. King Tribhuvan returned from a dramatic exile in India, a move he had orchestrated to break the Ranas' grip on power. His homecoming was a moment of national catharsis. For the crowds that thronged the streets of Kathmandu, his presence signified not just the restoration of the Shah monarchy, but the promise of a modern, democratic Nepal. The long, dark night of Rana autocracy was over. A new day, it was hoped, had dawned. But the path forward was fraught with uncertainty. The new political order was a fragile power-sharing arrangement brokered in New Delhi, an uneasy triumvirate of the king, the old Rana establishment, and the democratic forces of the Nepali Congress Party. At the heart of this democratic contingent was a man forged in the crucible of India's own freedom struggle, Prasad Koirala. Known to all as BP, he was a charismatic intellectual, a freedom fighter, and a close associate of Mahatma Gandhi and Jawaharlal Nehru. As a key figure in the revolution, BP Koirala briefly served as Home Minister in the interim cabinet, tasked with the monumental challenge of steering the ship of state through these turbulent, uncharted waters. While BP navigated the treacherous currents of high politics in Kathmandu, his youngest brother was learning his own political trade far from the capital's gaze. Girija Prasad Koirala was just 26 years old, a mid-level activist, seemingly a minor player in the shadow of his famous sibling. But his work was foundational. He was on the ground in the industrial heartlands of Biratnagar, organizing the jute mill workers who formed the backbone of the nascent labor movement. It was here, in the heat and dust of factory gates and union halls, that Girija honed his skills as a tough, pragmatic organizer, building a power base that would one day propel him to the very center of Nepali politics. This was the new Nepal, a nation in ferment. The air was thick with possibility and political argument. For the first time, the destiny of the country was not being decided behind palace walls, but debated openly in the streets, in tea shops, and in the pages of fledgling newspapers. Rallies and demonstrations became a part of daily life, as a politically awakened populace demanded a constitution, free elections, and a stake in their own future. It was a time of immense hope and profound uncertainty, and at the very center of this vortex of change were the Koirala brothers, two men whose lives would become inextricably linked with the fate of their nation. At a party in New Delhi, King Tribhuvan, allegedly drunk, suggested Nepal merge with India. Nehru laughed it off. No papers, no politics, just silence. The king never brought it up again. Nehru respected Nepal's sovereignty. He feared Chinese expansion, yes, but he also believed in organic nationalism. Nepal wasn't Sikkim. It was a friend, not a frontier. For over 2 centuries, their name has been a byword for courage, tenacity, and unwavering loyalty, the Gurkhas of Nepal. Forged in the crucible of the Himalayan foothills, their reputation was sealed in battle against the British East India Company in the early 19th century. So impressed were the British by their martial prowess that they began recruiting them into their own army, a tradition that would span the globe and the great wars of the 20th century. Their motto, Kafa Hunu Banda Manu Ramro, better to die than be a coward, is not a mere slogan. It is a code etched into the very soul of their warrior identity, symbolized by the iconic curved blade of the kukuri. When the sun finally set on the British Empire in India in 1947, a profound question arose. What would become of the Gurkha regiments? The answer was forged in a unique diplomatic arrangement known as the Tripartite Agreement, signed by Britain, the newly independent India, and the Kingdom of Nepal. Under this historic pact, the 10 Gurkha regiments of the British Indian Army were divided. 4 were transferred to the British Army, while 6 became an integral part of the new Indian Army. India, in its very infancy as a nation, inherited not just a territory, but this extraordinary human and military legacy. And so, India's army proudly included Gurkha regiments, brave Nepali soldiers who would go on to fight and bleed for India's defence. They weren't foreign mercenaries. They were brothers in arms, sworn to protect the sovereignty of a nation that was not their own by birth, but by oath. In the frozen heights of the 1962 Sino-Indian War, across the plains in the conflicts with Pakistan and in counter-insurgency operations, the Gurkhas distinguished themselves time and again. Their gallantry earned them India's highest military decorations, creating a bond forged not in politics, but in shared sacrifice on the battlefield. And herein lies a remarkable paradox of modern history. While thousands of Nepal's finest young men served in the Indian military, their homeland remained completely sovereign. Yet Nepal itself remained untouched. In an age of aggressive nation-building, where a strong military presence often served as a prelude to political domination, the Indo-Nepal relationship defied convention. The border between the two nations remained one of the most open in the world, a porous frontier where people, trade and culture flow with a freedom that belies the very concept of a hard international boundary. This delicate balance was no accident. It was the deliberate policy of India's first Prime Minister, Jawaharlal Nehru. Despite this deep military bond, Nehru never crossed the line. A student of history and a pragmatist of geopolitics, he understood that a coerced Nepal would be a permanent source of instability. Instead, he envisioned Nepal as a sovereign, friendly buffer state, a crucial cushion between India and the emerging power of communist China. His foreign policy, rooted in the Panchsheel, or the 5 principles of peaceful coexistence, prioritized mutual respect and non-interference. This vision was codified in the 1950 Treaty of Peace and Friendship, a document that enshrined this special relationship. It was a pact that allowed for an unprecedented level of military cooperation while simultaneously guaranteeing Nepal's sovereignty. For Nehru, the strategic value of a willing friend was infinitely greater than the prize of territorial expansion. He chose friendship over annexation. This decision shaped the subcontinent for the next century, a living testament to the idea that the strongest bonds are not forged by force, but by mutual respect. In 1959, BP Koirala became Nepal's first elected PM. But in 1961, King Mahendra staged a coup. Democracy died. Koirala was jailed, then exiled. From India, BP led the democratic struggle. He never sought merger. His vision was clear, a sovereign democratic Nepal with Indian friendship, not Indian rule. How does one measure the true legacy of a leader? It is rarely found in monuments of stone or bronze. Instead, it is woven into the very fabric of a nation, in its ideals, its art, and the spirit of its people. For Bishweshwar Prasad Koirala, his legacy is not a static memorial, but a living, breathing entity. It lives first and foremost in the hard-won struggle for democracy. BP was not merely a politician, he was a revolutionary, an intellectual, and a prisoner of conscience who spent years in exile and incarceration for his unwavering belief in a government of the people. He envisioned a Nepal free from autocratic rule, built on the foundations of democratic socialism and individual liberty. This vision ignited a flame that would, years after his death, culminate in the people's movements, forever changing the course of the nation. The democratic Nepal of today, with all its complexities and challenges, is a direct echo of his sacrifice. But his influence extended beyond the political arena. BP's legacy is also etched into the pages of Nepali literature. Through novels like Sumnima and his candid autobiography, he explored the depths of the human psyche with a psychological realism that was revolutionary for its time. He wrote not as a statesman, but as a profound observer of the human condition, giving voice to the inner lives, the anxieties, and the aspirations of his people. His literary work was an act of empathy, a bridge between his political ideals and the soul of the nation he sought to serve. And then there is the personal, a legacy carried forward in a new generation on a different kind of stage. BP's legacy lives on, in democracy, in literature, in his granddaughter Manisha. She took the family name not into the halls of power, but onto the silver screens of Bollywood, becoming one of South Asia's most celebrated actresses. In her art and in her own public battles fought with immense grace and resilience, one can see a reflection of the Koirala spirit, a testament to perseverance that continues to inspire millions. Yet, perhaps BP's most profound legacy is found not in an action, but in an absence, and in the silence of a moment that could have changed everything. In the mid-20th century, as the world map was being redrawn, the question of Nepal's sovereignty hung precariously in the balance. The newly independent India, under Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru, faced a critical choice regarding its Himalayan neighbour. The path of annexation was a real and tempting possibility, one that would have absorbed the ancient kingdom into the burgeoning Indian Union. It was a crossroads in history, a whisper in the corridors of power that could have erased a nation's identity forever. That it did not happen was a testament to the extraordinary statesmanship and mutual respect between these two leaders. It was a choice born of wisdom, not weakness. And so, Nepal remains independent, a sovereign nation nestled in the Himalayas. This was not a historical accident, it was a deliberate act of preservation. It stands today not because it couldn't be taken, but because, in a moment of profound historical significance, it wasn't. Thank you for watching Learning Life content. Please like, share, comment and subscribe. Your support helps us grow and motivates us to bring you more fascinating and enriching stories.